we are going to do some practice using house briefs, rooms in the house, and front door, backyard, front yard, stuff like that. And the plaintiff will be questioning first, and then the defense will do some questioning. So 2 and 15 for the record. Where did you see the suspect?
In the living room.
What happened after you saw the suspect?
He ran towards the dining room, and then he ran into the closet. Wait a minute. I mean the restroom.
So he ran into the bathroom?
Yes, he did.
Where were you when you heard all the noise?
I was in my bedroom.
Where did you hear the noise coming from?
From the living room.
After you heard him in the living room, then what happened next?
I got out of my bedroom and walked towards the family room, which is when I saw him in the living room, and he ran in the restroom, bathroom, whatever.
Once he ran into the bathroom, what happened next?
He climbed out of the window to the backyard.
What happened next?
I chased him from the backyard into the garage because the garage door was unlocked.
So to backtrack, when you were in the bedroom, you heard a noise come from the living room, and you walked towards the family room and saw the suspect go from the living room to the restroom to the backyard and then through the garage door. What happened next?
After I chased him out of the backyard into the garage, he went back into the house and ran through the front door.
How did he get into the house?
Through the garage door, and the garage door is right by the front door.
And what happened next?
He tried to hide in the closet, but went through the front door and to the front yard instead. So he ran to the front yard and not the backyard. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct.
There's a backslide.
Oh. I thought you said that he went through the back door at some point.
I never said he went through the back door.
What was your wife doing through all of this, and where were your children?
My wife was in the family room, and my kids were in their bedroom. I think they all ended up in the living room or dining room at some point. Actually, it was the backyard and the front yard. I told them to stay inside and to stay away from the backyard and front yard. They also locked up the bathroom window. My wife also checked in the closet to make sure no one else was in the house, even checked the kitchen. The kitchen was clear.
Okay. Let's do that again. I think on the back page, let's switch back to plaintiff just to give it a little more.
Okay.
Back and forth. Sorry, I didn't warn you there was a back page. So let's do that again. And so how was that speed wise? Yes. It was probably great, huh? Okay. Let's speed it up then. Let's go 2 and 14. For the record, where did you see the suspect?
In the living room.
What happened after you saw the suspect?
He ran towards the dining room, and then he ran into the closet. Wait a minute. I mean the restroom.
So he ran into the bathroom?
Yes, he did.
Where were you when you heard all the noise?
I was in my bedroom.
Where did you hear the noise coming from?
From the living room.
After you heard him in the living room, then what happened next?
I got out of my bedroom and walked towards the family room, which is when I saw him in the living room, and he ran in the restroom, bathroom, whatever.
Once he ran to the bathroom, what happened next?
He climbed out of the window to the backyard.
What happened next?
I chased him from the backyard into the garage Because the garage door was unlocked.
So to backtrack, when you were in your bedroom, you heard a noise come from the living room, and you walked towards the family room and saw the suspect go from the living room to the restroom to the backyard and then through the garage door. What happened next?
After I chased him out of the backyard into the garage, he went back into the house and ran through the front door.
How did he get into the house?
Through the garage door, and the garage door is right by the front door.
And what happened next?
He tried to hide in the closet, but went through the front door and to the front yard instead.
So he ran to the front yard and not the backyard. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I thought you said that he went through the back door at some point.
I never said he went through the back door.
What was your wife doing through all of this, and where were your children?
My wife was in the family room and my kids were in their bedroom. I think they all ended up in the living room or dining room at some point. Actually, it was the dining room. I told them to stay inside and to stay away from the backyard and front yard. They also locked up the bathroom window. My wife also checked in the closet to make sure no one else was in the house, even checked the kitchen. The kitchen was clear.
Okay. All right, so let's do it 3 and 20. That'll be at 180 for the record. Where did you see the suspect?
In the living room,
What happened after you saw the suspect?
he ran towards the dining room and then he ran into the closet. Wait a minute. I mean the restroom.
So he ran into the bathroom?
Yes, he did.
Where were you when you heard all the noise?
I was in my bedroom.
Where did you hear the noise coming from?
From the living room.
After you heard him in the living room, then what happened next?
I got out of my bedroom and walked towards the family room, which is when I saw him in the living room, and he ran in the restroom, bathroom, whatever.
Once he ran into the bathroom, what happened next?
He climbed out of the window to the backyard.
What happened next?
I chased him from the backyard into the garage because the garage door was unlocked.
So to backtrack, when you were in your bedroom, you heard a noise come from the living room, and you walked towards the family room and saw the suspect go from the living room to the restroom to the backyard and then through the garage door. What happened next?
After I chased him out of the backyard into the garage, he went back into the house and ran through the front door.
How did he get into the house?
Through the garage door, and the garage door is right by the front door.
And what happened next?
He tried to hide in the closet, but went through the front door and to the front yard instead.
So he ran to the front yard and not the backyard. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I thought you said that he went through the back door at some point.
I never said he went through the back door.
What was your wife doing through all of this, and where were your children?
My wife was in the family room and my kids were in their bedroom. I think they all ended up in the living room or dining room at some point. Actually, it was the dining room. I told them to stay inside and to stay away from the backyard and front yard. They also locked up the bathroom window. My wife also checked in the closet to make sure no one else was in the house, even checked the kitchen. The kitchen was clear.
Okay, so now we have some regular warm-up. We have Mr. Nichols for defense examining and Mr. Moore for the plaintiff. I am Mr. Moore for the plaintiff.
I am the witness.
I am Mr. Nichols for defense.
So just use the side margin timing.
Begins with a question by Mr. Nichols. For the record, you note that David's handwriting is impaired, but he can write checks. Okay. Is that something he told you?
I asked him specifically what he would write. Could he coordinate himself long enough to write a check? And the answer was yes.
Are there other things that he writes on a customary basis?
He wasn't limited to checks, but I wasn't looking for somebody who did a 5-page longhand essay either.
Okay, and he says he can stand or walk for 2 hours at one stretch.
Yes, he said he could. Dr. Herndon says he can't, but he says he can.
Okay, what did he tell you about that? What happens after 2 hours? Does he have to rest?
He developed too much pain and discomfort to continue.
Does he sit down, lie down? What happens after a 2-hour stretch of walking?
Either sit or lay down, either one.
For how long?
I don't think he specified.
Is he able to resume walking or standing after some appropriate period of rest?
Yes,
And would it be in the same day?
I had the sense it would be in the same day. Again, I didn't ask him for an example in an 8-hour period of time. I didn't say, "What do you think you can do?" But his maximum, that was a note of what he felt his maximum tolerance was for one stretch at a time.
Okay. And then the next sentence says, need work where sit down to do the work like electronics. Is that a statement that he made to you?
Absolutely.
He expressed an interest in electronics.
He is very interested in electronics.
What did he tell? What kind of job function in the electronics field did he want to do?
Stereo equipment repair, basically what I would describe as being an electronics technician.
How he would like to fix a stereo or TV or something like that?
Correct.
Does he have the ability to do that work?
I think he is interested in stereo as opposed to TV. Do I think he was capable of doing that kind of work?
Yes.
No.
Why not?
His dexterity.
Did he tell you he could use a solder iron and screwdrivers and things like that?
Yes.
Did you do any testing?
The Center for Career Evaluations evaluated his tool usage with his right hand.
What kind of training or testing did they do on the right hand dexterity?
This is a whole report, and I wouldn't want to just pick out, one part of it. They gave standardized dexterity tests. They actually did samples where he used various types of tools. What their findings was that on the Bennett hand tool dexterity test, he was at the first percentile of the population in terms of his ability to use that. And the norm used for that test is electrical maintenance workers, which is not always fine dexterity use as you get for an electronics tech, for example.
Let's mark that next. That will be Exhibit 6. This is July 26, 1991 report prepared for you by the Center for Career Evaluations.
Is that the Center for Career Evaluation report that you referred to in Exhibit 3?
Yes.
Have you had any other career evaluations performed on David's behalf other than this one that we have marked Exhibit 6?
No.
Okay. David also apparently told you that he has strong mechanical aptitude and he wants to work for himself. Have you done any testing that would either confirm or deny the mechanical aptitude?
Yes.
And would you agree or disagree with that?
His mechanical comprehension on the Bennett comprehension test was in the 70 percentile, and I would call that high. 50 percentile would be considered average, so he has above average mechanical reasoning.
Okay, down below this sentence says, can't do work alone or in group. What does that mean?
In conjunction, he was talking about wanting to have his own stereo equipment repair shop, and he didn't think that he was comfortable working totally alone because he needed structure, or else he couldn't get things done and couldn't motivate himself. He wasn't comfortable working in a group because he doesn't get along well working in groups.
Does that leave him working with one or two other people, or what?
I don't know. I think that they are mutually exclusive of each other. I don't know quite where that leaves him. I was asking him when he talked about self-employment whether he really understood what that meant at all. That was kind of his response about how he would evaluate his areas of temperament, at least.
Okay, he also told you that he loved math and he was pretty good in math. His reading was good and his spelling was bad. The testing that you did that respond to those areas?
Yes and no. Well, they definitely responded to those areas.
Tell me what you found in those areas.
The reading was at,
She is reading from the career evaluation report now.
Yes.
his reading was at the 10.6 grade level, which is actually respectable. That's on an untimed reading test. His math was at the 4.4 grade level, which is not respectable.
Is there a separate test for spelling or is that sort of encompassed in the reading?
No, there is a separate test for spelling. I don't believe that they administered that.
What other areas were tested in that sort of school curriculum type area?
Well, those are probably the only two tests. I believe that give a grade level equivalent. They also gave a general learning ability test, and they used the Raven's abstract reasoning test, which is the least contaminated from a verbal linguistic viewpoint. It is basically a nonverbal abstract reasoning test, so somebody's overall linguistic skills, if those happen to be poor, it will not negatively impact the score. He came up with a rating at the 43rd percentile of the overall population, which indicates an average learning potential.
He talked about computers, it looks like. He says he has never used one at all. Did he indicate any interest in learning or using computers?
No,
Do you think he is mechanically able to do that?
Just a second. Mechanically?
Physically able to from a dexterity standpoint?
he would not be able to use a computer for speed or production. He would never, for instance, make a word processor or a data entry operator just from a dexterity standpoint. He wouldn't make it. I can picture that for a number of other reasons too, but he cannot do any production on a computer. He could certainly peck and hunt on a keyboard.
Does he have the reasoning ability to learn computer skills?
Yes,
And are those jobs available for someone who can hunt and peck at a computer?
that's not the only criteria, but there is work available that requires use of the keyboard on a non-production fashion.
What kinds of jobs?
Computer-assisted drafter.
Is that where you ended up with David? I think Dr. Formuses mentioned that computer-assisted drafting was one potential job for David.
That's only the only potential job I can think of.
Okay, the next paragraph or group of sentences says counseling, not interested, avoid sun and heat. Maybe you ought to tell me the rest.
Uses more air conditioning, wants to build own stereo brand. Father, Container Corporation, makes cardboard boxes in Milpitas. Doesn't know if he has a diary date on SSI.
What does that mean?
The Social Security Administration, when evaluating somebody's claim for benefits, will either say you are so severely disabled that we assume your condition is going to always be this bad, and we are going to award you now, and we are never going to look at you again. Or they can say, hello, maybe there is a possibility that your circumstances will improve, and we want to review you in a year or 2 years or 3 years to make that determination. That would be considered a diary date.
He doesn't know.
He doesn't know. It is not unusual for people not to know that most of the times. People don't.
Going back up to the first sentence of that paragraph, counseling, not interested. What did he mean by that?
I asked if he was seeing any therapist or was interested in seeing a therapist. I think I made the mistake of asking him that question when the girlfriend was in the room, but he said he was not interested in doing that.
Did you ever follow up beyond that simple question and response?
No.
Okay.
I might just add that I think that in that and a number of other areas that his answers to me were influenced by his age and maleness.
What particular answers do you think were influenced by that?
There is a lot of pride there, and I think a real tendency to minimize the amount of difficulty he has with some tasks.
All right. After your meeting with David on June 29th, what was the next thing that you did in connection with this case?
I believe I called Mr. Moore and told him I wanted to refer him to the Center for Career Evaluation for an assessment.
And that work was done, and their findings were marked already as Exhibit 6, Council.
Correct. Is this the only outside group that you used for testing?
Yes,
Did they perform educational testing at all, or just simply career-oriented testing?
well, it is vocational testing, which would include things that would be considered traditionally educational or academic testing.
Have you spoken with anyone at the Center for Career Evaluation since receiving the report?
Before and after receiving the report, yes.
Do you have any notes concerning any of those conversations?
No,
Is there any information that you learned from them that is not contained within those reports?
no.
So any of your opinions in this case then are based upon the actual typewritten report, which is 8 pages that you received and we have marked as Exhibit 6?
Yes, any of my opinions concerning his test results, I would qualify it that way, yes.
Okay, what other outside information have you received and reviewed regarding your opinions in this case?
I have reviewed 15 volumes of the Shriners Hospital file, the medical records from Dameron Hospital, report by Dr. Trigiano, a report by Dr. Herndon, a written response to questions I had from Dr. Herndon, and then costing information from local medical facilities.
Okay,
And I'm sorry, I also used a computerized search of the dictionary of occupational titles called either Quest or Labor Market. Plus, I consulted with a volume called Classification of Jobs and a companion delineation of the distribution of worker traits that is a part of the manual that goes with the computer program.
okay, and the quest information is here. Let's mark that next since it is near the top. Tell me again what this information is that we have marked Exhibit 7.
The Department of Labor has a substantial volume called the Dictionary of Occupational Titles that identifies the worker traits necessary to perform any of the 12,864 job titles that the Department of Labor has attributed to supposedly every job in the U.S. economy. It will tell you how smart you have to be, how much academics you have to have, or standard vocational preparation you have to have, how much dexterity, how much mechanical aptitude, things like that. This computer program uses that Department of Labor Dictionary of Occupational Titles as its database and will select for you the jobs that correspond with the worker traits that you enter into the initial profile. That's what this represents, is the outcome of that inquiry.
So you select the traits that most closely approximate David's abilities, and then you put them in this computer?
Correct.
And what traits did you put in?
In terms, there is a category called General Educational Development, which includes reasoning, mathematics, and language skills. In that category, I said that he was capable of doing any work in the U.S. economy that required those traits, anywhere from the lowest 10% of the population up to and including the middle 1/3 of the population. So basically, I said he had average skills in all those areas.
All right, switching our warm-up material, still warm-up. We have Ms. Mathis for defense and Mr. Petru for plaintiff. And I am Mr. Petru.
I am the witness.
I am Ms. Mathis for defense. Begins with a question by Ms. Mathis. For the record, Mr. Bill, my name is Nancy Mathis, and I represent the railroad. Have you ever had your deposition taken before?
No, I haven't.
Did you talk to Mr. Petru about what we're doing?
Yes, uh-huh.
You understand I'm going to be asking you questions and you'll be giving me answers?
Yes.
Now I understand that you have somewhat of a hearing problem. So if at any time you can't hear me or hear only a portion of my question, please let me know.
Yes.
And I'll speak up, all right?
Yes.
Or I'll lower my voice so you can hear me, okay?
Thank you.
If I ask you a question that doesn't make sense to you or you don't understand, let me know. I'd be happy to repeat it or rephrase it.
Yes, uh-huh.
Otherwise, if I ask you a question and you give me an answer, I'm going to assume you're answering it because you understand it. Will that be a fair assumption on my part?
Yes, ma'am.
If you want to take a break, if you want to go to the restroom or get some water or coffee, please let me know. You're not a prisoner here, and we can do that anytime you want to.
Thank you. Yes.
You understand that your testimony here is under oath, just like it is in court?
Yes.
So you understand that if your testimony in court is different than it is now, I'll have the opportunity to comment on that, and it may impeach your testimony. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay, now have you ever used a name other than Curtis Bill?
Nothing except a nickname when I was a child, Pete.
Pete?
Yes.
What's your date of birth?
8/18/22.
Where do you live right now?
We don't have a home right now. We're traveling. We sold our home. We put everything in storage and we're planning an extended travel. We're using our daughter's address in Santa Rosa.
What is her name and address?
Her name is Yvonne, Yvonner, Bill, and that's 461 Rose Avenue, Santa Rosa, 95401.
How long have you been traveling around?
We only started the 8th of July.
Do you have a mobile home?
We have a travel trailer.
And do you have a set amount of time that you plan to do this?
Just until we figure to use most of part of a year. And unless we get tired of that sooner, then we'll cut it shorter.
Have you retired?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you retire?
March 31st, 1986.
Is that a regular retirement or disability retirement?
That
I'll object to the question based on collateral sources. Go ahead and answer the question.
at the time I took my regular retirement, they,
Took a buyout. Before we go on, Nancy, I wanted to put a couple of things on the record, if you don't mind. There are some outstanding discovery requests, which I believe you spoke to my secretary about today.
Yes, I did.
And there are a couple of elements or items from the first request for production of documents, which you indicated in your answer would be supplied. One involves a wage history, which we haven't received yet, which I'm sure you'll provide. I don't imagine that is a difficult thing to find somewhere in the bowels of the UP.
It's not easy to find, but it's findable if it's there.
I'm sure that it's there. The other thing is something I noticed in reviewing the request for production that was probably a mistake on my part for not catching it, and that is that the request for production asked for photographs of the compressor head. I would be willing, well, we already have sent you the photographs that we have. If you do have photographs, I would.
I don't think we have photographs, but if we do, we'll produce them.
All right. And the second area has to do with plaintiff's second request for production of documents. Without going through each one individually, I'm sure you're aware they primarily involve information that the railroad has access to or has or can accumulate dealing with noise studies and problems of that nature. And it's my understanding that you're waiting to coordinate the accumulation of all that evidence with other hearing loss, tinnitus type cases and are going to provide them. Is that correct?
That's my current understanding. I don't have the information yet. I have requested it. Apparently, the research required is extensive and they're still working on it.
Is it possible that any of the information can be provided as it springs forth to life?
I don't know, but I will find out.
We do have a trial coming up in August. If you can find that out, I'd appreciate it. I didn't feel those were sufficient reasons to hold up this deposition, so we're going to go ahead and make sure you're trying to get this for me.
I'll do my best.
Thank you.
Where were you born?
I was born in Wiggins, Mississippi,
And how long have you lived in California?
1931.
What schools did you attend?
You want grammar school and high school?
Yes, please.
Hornbrook Grammar School in Hornbrook, California.
Where's Hornbrook?
Pardon me?
Where is Hornbrook?
16 miles north of Wairika.
And where did you attend high school?
Wairika,
What year did you graduate?
1940.
Did you attend any college?
No college.
What was your father's occupation?
He was a lumber mill worker.
What was his name?
His name was Grover C. Bill.
And your mother?
Mother's name was Ethel Bill.
Was she employed outside the home?
No, she was not.
Do you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes.
What are their names and ages?
I'll object to this as being irrelevant and not calculated to lead to discovery of relevant information.
To the extent that they have hearing problems, it may be relevant.
That was asked and answered in the interrogatories about whether there was any sibling or relative to Mr. Bill who has had any hearing problems. His father did, and that was in association with work at the lumber mill. A lot of these questions are the same as the interrogatories.
Okay, do you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes.
How many?
I have 2 brothers and 3 sisters.
Where do you stand among them?
I have a sister and brother older than I am, and then I'm next.
Do any of them have hearing problems?
Not to my knowledge.
How long have you been married to your wife?
39 years.
Is that your only marriage?
Yes.
I take it your wife is retired also?
Yes.
Do you have any children?
Yes.
What are their names and ages?
Their names?
You mentioned Yvonne.
That's the only one we have.
And how old is she?
She's 38.
Do you have any other family members who have hearing losses? Your father, correct?
Other than my father, nothing. None that I know of.
Did your father ever have to wear a hearing aid?
No, he was not that bad.
Was that from his work at the lumber mill as far as you know?
That's from what the doctor said.
Do you have any other family members employed by the railroad?
My oldest brother is a retired engineer.
Which railroad?
Southern Pacific.
What is his name?
What is his name?
Alfred A. Bill.
How long did he work for SP?
Over 30 years.
Did you have allergies ever?
Allergies?
Yes.
No.
How about asthma?
No.
Have you ever had any major illnesses?
Nothing major.
How about any hospitalizations?
I have been hospitalized.
For what?
I had a hernia operation when I was in the service. I had my gallbladder removed. I was hospitalized for pneumonia, and I was hospitalized when I fell off the ladder at the state hospital.
Have you had any surgery from the neck up?
Not from the neck up.
Before you went to work for the railroad, did you ever have any testing for hearing?
Nothing other than whisper tests in the Army.
How were those?
How were they?
Were they normal?
Normal, yes.
Did you ever have any problems with your hearing before working with the railroad?
The only problem I had was, as I stated, the gunshot past my left ear when I was a young boy.
What effect did that have on you?
It seemed to reduce my hearing in my left ear.
Before you went to work for the railroad, either the first time or the second time, did you ever use a hearing aid in your left ear?
I've never used a hearing aid before.
Did you have measles when you were a child?
Yes.
Mumps?
Yes.
Rheumatic fever?
No.
Scarlet fever?
No.
Diphtheria?
No.
Whooping cough?
Yes.
How old were you when you had whooping cough?
I must have been about 4 or 5 years old.
Must have been pretty tough to survive. How old were you when you had measles?
Very young, 5 or 6 years old.
And mumps?
Along about the same time.
How about flu?
I've had the flu, yes.
Throughout your life?
Pardon me?
Several times throughout your life?
A couple different times, yes.
What specific strain of virus are you referring to, counselor?
How about meningitis?
No.
Who was your family doctor?
At what time, counsel?
Anytime.
Objection. Go ahead and answer the best you can.
My family doctor when?
Starting from when you were young.
Do you want to refer to the interrogatory answer? I mean, there's a whole list of them in the interrogatories, and you might ask if there is anyone else. This isn't a memory test necessarily. Interrogatory number 12.
These records reveal that you were treated by Dr. Schlappi in Hilt, California.
Yes.
Is he still alive?
No, he's deceased.
How about Dr. Jack Walsh in Eureka?
Dr. Jack Walsh, I'm not sure if he's still alive.
Dr. George Watson in Eureka?
He's deceased also.
Are these family doctors?
He was a family doctor, yeah.
Dr. Walsh also?
Yeah, they were both railroad doctors,
How about Dr. Pat Allenson?
family doctor.
Is he still around?
He's retired.
How about Dr. Grace Thompson and Dr. Brown in Anchorage?
I couldn't answer. They were both my doctors at times, but I couldn't answer when they were.
What did you see them for in Anchorage?
I saw Dr. Grace Thompson for my cluster headaches and Dr. Brown for my cluster headaches.
How long have you suffered from cluster headaches?
Since I was about in my mid-40s.
How often do you get them?
It will vary. Sometimes every 2 years for 3 months and sometimes every year for 2 or 3 months.
They come on and you get them for a day or two at the time and it goes away and comes on again.
No, it comes on for about 30 or 40 minutes and goes away. And that will go on sometimes every day or sometimes every 4 or 5 days for a period of 2 or 3 months.
What do you take for that?
Cafergot.
Do you have a prodrome? Do you know it's coming on?
I know it's coming on.
Do you get visual changes?
No visual changes, a tingling and burning in my left eye.